What if Deku joined Team JPDE? Chapter 38. Teachers and Android. Monday. Day 113. Weiss had asked Deku for help with dust class stuff. Though Deku had to wonder why Weiss had asked him for help, and not Professor Peach. "Hey, Weiss," Deku said. "Ijuku. So glad you could come," Weiss said. "I promised, didn't I? Although I'm still not sure why you wanted me to come," Deku said. It's not exactly that I wanted or needed you to. I just thought it'd be a good idea," Weiss said. "A good idea? In what sense?" Deku asked. "Well, not in the sense of getting extra credit or anything, sadly, but I thought it'd be a good opportunity for you to start networking. A professor's recommendation can go a long way towards any future goals you may want to have towards specialization once you graduate. And since the 3rd and 4th year find students to be much more mobile, there's really only the first 2 to connect. Since you joined halfway through the 1st year and considering you joined Beacon early. I hope I'm not overstepping," Weiss said. Oh, I see. That's actually a really nice thought, Weiss. "Thank you," Deku said. "Thank goodness." "You're welcome," Weiss said. "Although, that explains the why. Still doesn't tell me what exactly we'll be doing," Deku said. "Well, that depends on Professor Peach, really. It's not the first time I help her with lesson prep work, but the specifics change frequently. So, the wisest course of action would be to just go in and ask her," Weiss said. Deku and Weiss then entered Professor Peach's classroom. "Good afternoon, Professor," Weiss said. "Hello, Miss Schnee and oh, Mr. Midoriya. Didn't think I'd have 2 helpers today instead of 1," Peach said. "Hope there's enough tasks to go around, Professor. I've actually been tutoring Ijuku in Dust to help him make up for what he's missing," Weiss said. "Oh, my. You mean you helped him recuperate the entirety of the first semester's curriculum?" Peach asked. "And then some. Remember, I joined Beacon halfway through the year, and I missed out on a lot of the basics I would have learned if I'd had come to Beacon early," Deku said. "Miss Schnee, I knew you had some academic skills, but I didn't realize you also had an instinct for teaching." "Color me impressed," Peach said. "Oh, it was nothing really. I just happened to have a lot of notes," Weiss said. "I wouldn't say so. You also helped David catch up." "Quite impressive due to his memory loss," Deku said. "Well, as a teacher I must be humble about my expertise," Weiss said. "Music to my ears. Anyway, there's more than enough work for the 2 of you," Peach said. "What do you need us to do?" Professor Deku asked. "Well, for starters, let's measure the doses for next week's lesson." "Scales are in the cabinet, thank you," Peach said. Weiss and Deku then got to work. "That's the last one," Professor Weiss said. "Very good. Thank you so much, students. You've been a great help," Peach said. "That's a lot of material. Do you usually do all of that on your own?" Professor Deku asked. "I used to, but then Miss Schnee got all worried because I was still doing so during the 6th month of pregnancy. So, now I do it with her help." "Well, to be fair, Miss Rose was also worried, but she had no idea how to act around me." "It was adorable," Peach said. "And I still don't understand what possessed you to keep going for so long." "I have it on good authority you could have asked for leave since month 5, Weiss said. "We were in the middle of a very important piece of the curriculum, Miss Schnee. Breaking the flow of learning in half between 2 professors would have been detrimental, to say the least," Peach said. "Still think it was an unnecessary effort on your part," Professor Weiss said. "Well, not everyone is as good a learner as you and Mr. Midori are, Miss Schnee. Keep that in mind. If being a teacher was as easy as accumulating knowledge and spouting it out from behind a desk, anyone could do it. Considering circumstances like timing and the different aptitudes of each student is a vital part of the job, as you'll learn if you ever decide to follow this path, Peach said. I didn't mean to assume, Weiss said. I know, Miss Schnee. But don't forget that it's children who are supposed to rely on adults, not the opposite. Now, let's clean up, here. Think I've kept you long enough, Peach said. As they cleaned up, Deku's mind was stuck on Peach's words. That children should rely on adults, though the hunter profession and even the hero profession doesn't fit that sentence. Deku had decided it was time to mend his relationship with Miss Goodwitch. He had bought some tea and headed towards Miss Goodwitch's classroom. Deku used Black Whip to open the door to the classroom as his hands were full carrying the tea tray. I'll be right there, Violet. I have to finish this last paper, Glinda said. Glinda was sitting at her desk with piles of papers and books either side of her. Deku then noticed that she wasn't wearing her glasses. Violet. And here I thought my name was Izuku, Deku said. Mr. Midoriya, Glinda asked. Glinda put her glasses on and stood up. That tea set. I thought you were. Where's Violet? I mean, Professor Peach, Glinda said. She's, occupied and... Well, she worried that you wouldn't take a break without someone coming to remind you of it. Also, I thought it was time to mend our relationship, Deku said. I guess I wouldn't. And yes, I would like to patch the rift between us. Please put it on the desk over there, Glinda said. Yes, Deku said. Deku then put the tea tray down, and the two began to have some tea. This tea, Glinda said. You don't like it? Too floral, Deku asked. Oh, no, it's delicious. I was just wondering why the full box is here as well. Seems brand new, Glinda said. That's because it is. It's a present, Deku said. A present? From whom, if I may, Glinda asked. From the person right in front of you. I said I wanted to make amends, Deku said. Glinda remained silent. Is something wrong, Deku asked. No, it's just. I've never received anything like this from a student before, Glinda said. I guess they thought you'd refuse it, Deku said. Do I look that unapproachable, Glinda asked. Maybe a little, but not in a bad way. If that makes sense, Deku said. Please try and elaborate, Mr. Midoriya, Glinda said. It's just that you have a tendency to stick to the rules. Not in a rude way, granted, but still one would think you'd refuse presents from students just because it would go against school rules or a code of conduct, Deku said. So I give the impression of lacking nuance, is what you're saying, Glinda said. Yes, that'd be a good way to put it, Deku said. Glinda then giggled. It's an old critique, believe it or not. Professor Peach told me pretty much the same thing on and off when we in a team together, Glinda said. She seems like she has a way of getting through to you, Miss Goodwitch, Deku said. Yes. And I'm glad to have her around to this day, Glinda said. Despite some of her antics, Glinda said. Like the time she made you act as a commentator for our exhibition fight, Deku asked. Yes, Glinda said. That was actually pretty funny. Students couldn't talk about anything else the following days, Deku said. They did, Glinda asked. Yes. I mean, they had never seen you act like you did with Professor Peach, so. It was pretty amazing, Deku said. Pretty amazing, Glinda said. A while later, Deku and Glinda had finished drinking some tea. I'll see you in class, Mr. Midoriya. Have a good night. Thank you for the present and the company, Glinda said. My pleasure. And thank you, Deku said. For what, Glinda asked. For everything, Deku said. Deku then left. So, how does it feel, Peach asked. I figured you'd be around, Violet, Glinda said. Having a student so earnestly express their appreciation for your efforts, Peach said. You'd know better than me. You've always been popular with the students, Glinda said. You're pretty popular too, believe me, Peach said. Doesn't feel like it. Anyway, Violet, I was wondering, Glinda said. What is it, Glinda? Peach asked. Did the students actually like that travesty of a commentary we produced for the exhibition matches? Glinda asked. Professor Peach grinned. They did. Now may I ask a question? Peach asked. Oh, sure, Glinda said. Did you tell him? Peach asked. Violet. Those kinds of stories are inappropriate to tell a student, Glinda yelled. And yet you haven't banned intimate relationship, Peach said. Like putting a ban on that would stop them, Glinda said. Then it should be fine to tell Mr. Midoriya about the tales of your youth, Peach said. Can we please talk about something else? Glinda asked. Fine. I'll give you the report about what happened in Peak, Peach said. Professor Peach and Glinda then entered the classroom. A while late, Professor Peach had finished informing Glinda about the guardian of Peak, Janera. A young girl. That looks like a Grim, Glinda asked. You know something I don't, Glinda, Peach said. Not about her specifically. But the concept is not a novelty to me, Glinda said. It has something to do with the secret war Ozpin has been fighting, Peach asked. Yes. But the similarities end there. The grim-looking person I'm thinking of is an extremely dangerous grown woman, not a headpat magnet. Still, a magical user that Ozpin doesn't know of, Glinda said. My theory is that she's a creation of this being that called itself the boss, Peach said. It can create magic users. That's concerning, Glinda said. Only the one so far. Whether his creative powers have limitations or magic users do not serve his needs, Peach said. Thankfully. Still, are you positive what she does can be called magic? Glinda asked. Well, I obviously couldn't verify it firsthand, lacking expertise and first-hand experience with our subject, but the nice young lady who helped us was pretty sure about it, Peach said. A nice young lady? Who exactly are we talking about here? Glinda asked. A passerby. We didn't really go through formal introductions, but she called herself Amber and referred to herself as a maiden, Peach said. Glinda was surprised at what Professor Peach just said. Glinda. Are you alright, there? Peach asked. You. What did you just? How exactly did you? Violet, what? What did this Amber look like? Where did you meet her? How? Glinda asked. Dark skin and hair, wore a long green cloak, in Peak first and then in Beacon again, and she literally appeared out of thin air, Peach said. This cannot, Glinda said. Glinda, what's wrong? Peach asked. I got to go. Violet, do not talk about this with anyone else. And neither should your students, Glinda said. But Peach said. Promise me, Glinda yelled. All right, I promise, Peach said. Glinda then left, and Professor Peach smiled once she was out of sight. Tuesday. Day 114. Up in Ozpin's office, Glinda had informed Ozpin and General Ironwood what Professor Peach had told her about Janera and Amber. She's still there, Ozpin said, returning to his office. Of course she is, Ironwood said. Were there any? Glinda asked. No sign anyone has been in there since we last went down there. The machine is operational, and her vitals are stable, with the slow decline we foresaw. Brain activity is in a constant state of near flatlining, Ozpin said. What's going on, then? Glinda asked. I think it's our enemy, Ozpin said. You mean? Glinda said. They just so happened to be helped by a maiden after running into a small girl with grim eyes and bone-white skin, Ozpin said. This wasn't a coincidence, Ironwood said. Obviously. There's no such thing as a being able to create magical users on this world. Not anymore, Ozpin said. Then. The children are being targeted, Glinda asked. On the contrary. This seems like a setup to get in their good graces, Ozpin said. But for what reason, Ironwood asked. Wouldn't be the first time she tried something like this. Her end goal is most probably corrupting someone, Ozpin said. The question being, who? Glinda asked. I want you to report anything concerning this matter to me, Glinda. Any details? Once we understand who she may be targeting, then we can make an informed decision, Ozpin said. But what should I say to Six? I mean, Professor Peach, Glinda asked. Oh, I think I have just the story for her, Ozpin said. Deku was still thinking about Professor Peach's words, and how they didn't ring true. People entered combat academies at 17, well, most people, and with a 4-year curriculum, that means you graduate at 21. And it was even younger for to become a hero, starting at 15 and lasting 3 years, you'd be 18. Just barely able to be considered an adult, and yet they were expected to go fight villains on their own. In fact, he had already been fighting villains on his own in his first year at UA. He was so lost in thought that he didn't notice he'd ran into a familiar face. Learn for your thoughts, Mr. Midoriya. It's shopping, that must be one hell of a grocery list. But we do have things known as scrolls to take notes, nowadays. Failing that, pen and paper, Peach said. Oh, no, it's not. It's not shopping, and I do have a list on my scroll, yes. I was thinking about. Well, something you said, actually, Deku said. Oh. Was there something you didn't understand from the latest lesson, Peach asked. No, it was about what you said about children having to rely on adults, Deku said. I see. What about it, Peach asked. Well, I've come to realize that it doesn't seem to be the case for the hunter profession, Deku said. You're not wrong. Let's walk and talk, Peach said. Deku and Peach then began to walk around Vale. Now that I think about it, you're younger than all your other classmates, except for Miss Rose. Children your age are usually in pre-hunter school, training to be able to pass the Hunter Academy's entrance exam, Peach said. I guess so. But when you live outside of the Four Kingdoms, you need to be able to take care of yourself. No matter how old you are. And yeah, sure, I may be younger than my peers, but I can definitely say that I have way more experience than most of them do. That's one of the reasons Ozpin accepted me into Beacon, Deku said. I see. Well, that experience will mean you'll never have to worry about financial security. I just hope you understand what it means to be a hunter. Most students only realize when it's far too late, Peach said. Believe me. I know what being a hunter is like. I wasn't just sat in a classroom of safety, my life has been filled with danger since day one of training, Deku said. Really, Peach asked. Yeah. And you seem to be talking from experience. Was it the same for you, Deku asked. No. It was for someone else, though. What I'm trying to say is that the hunter profession and the way the schools are run ask young people to make life-damning decisions when they are way too young to be able to distinguish between the mainstream sheen of the profession and the reality is, Peach said. But that's the way it must be. To prop up society. To keep the world from collapsing, Deku said. It's a sad truth. Hunters need to be trained from a young age to be effective. As if you went and asked a young kid if they wanted to train for life to fight nightmarish monsters with low chance of living past 30. They'd of course say hell no, Peach said. I have to admit, I was lured into the hunter profession by its glamour. But even though I've now seen its ugly side, it makes me want to be a hunter even more, Deku said. Really? You still want to be a hunter, after everything I've told you? You'll most likely never see your children grow up or even have children, Peach said. Then I guess I'll have to put the odds in my favor, Deku said. Excuse me, Peach asked. With the life I lead, not being dead right now, gives me confidence I'll live past 30, Deku said. Peach chuckled. You're always the one to shine the brightest, Peach said. That's what I plan to be. a shining light people can look to in their hour of need. And now to hopefully make a real change to the hunter profession so that living past 30 is the norm, Deku said. Well, then you will be glad to hear that there have been some steps made in the right direction. Just not recently. For example, the 2 years of supervised field experience were just 6 months before. That changed only 1 generation ago. But that's not enough. The core problem here is not hunters aren't given enough experience killing Grim. The problem is the paradigm of bringing up people for a war of attrition only, Peach said. You've obviously given this a lot of thought, Professor. What do you think should be done, Deku asked. Specialization, of course, Peach said. Specialization in what exactly, Deku asked. Well, if you're so interested in the subject. Yes, I'd need an assistant for something, anyway, Peach said. An assistant, Deku asked. Yup. I think you will be very interested in it. But you got to promise not to tell anyone, Peach said. I see. Sure, Deku said. Great. I'll contact you when and where. Thank you so much, Mr. Midoriya. Now I should get back to my own shopping. Bye, Peach said. Deku was currently walking through Then Beacon Gardens when... Hey, Izuku. Can we talk, Bolin asked. Oh, hey Bolin. Sure, we can talk. What is it, Deku asked. Reese and Arslan, Bolin said. Ah. How bad is it, Deku said. Things are quite bad between them, even more so than before. Reese has stopped talking to Arslan, which usually happens, but she's now starting to completely ignore her, and leaves the room. I fear it's going to start affecting our grades, Bolin said. That is very bad, Deku said. Do you have any ideas on how to get them at least talking to one another again? You were there when things exploded, Bolin said. I have an idea, but we're going to need some help. Follow me, Deku said. Wait. Where are we going, Bolin asked. To talk with Jack Frost and the Mad Hatter, Deku said. Who, Bolin asked. Deku and Bolin then arrived at Team JPDDE's room. Evelyn, Jack. There's someone here that needs your help, Deku said. Oh, hello there, I don't think we've met. I'm Jack, leader of Team JPDE, Jack asked. And I'm Evelyn, the best girl of Team JPDE, Evelyn said. No, Penny is, Deku said. Hey, Evelyn said. Nice to meet you. I'm Bolin, a transfer student from Mistral, member of Team ABRN, Bolin said. So, what do you need from us, Jack asked. Well, I don't exactly know, Izuku said. You two can help, Bolin said. Well, what's the problem, Evelyn said. 2 of my teammates have fallen out, their names are Arslan and Reese, and Izuku said you two could help, Bolin said. How so, Jack asked. Let me explain. You see, Arslan is the no-nonsense type, while Reese is the chaotic type. Just like the 2 of you. So I thought you two would be perfect to make them see eye to eye. You two did allow the difference between Vacuo and Mistral cinnamon varieties to make you hate each other, Deku said. Wait, you two fought over cinnamon, Bolin asked. It's a bit more complicated than that, but Evelyn said. That's essentially what happened. So what happened between Arslan and Reese, Jack asked. In short, due to Reese's hyperactiveness, she often ends up getting into trouble, and that usually means that Arslan has fixed things. Though recently Reese went out with Izuku and didn't cause any trouble, though Arslan had followed them thinking that Reese would cause trouble. I think you get the picture, Bolin said. Yeah. But don't worry, we'll sort them out, Evelyn said. Any idea where they are, Jack asked. I don't know where Reese is, though Arslan is most likely at the gym, Bolin said. Okay then, me and Jack will go see Arslan, while you and Evelyn go find Reese, Deku said. Okay, Bolin said. As you command, leader, Evelyn said. Hey. I'm the leader, Jack said. The 3 laughed. Then Jack and Deku went to the gym to see Arslan. Deku and Jack then arrived at the gym. They saw Arslan punching the punching bag before she then went and sat down on a bench. "Having an intensive workout, I see," Jack said, walking up to her. I guess. "Who are you?" Arslan asked. "This is Jack, my partner and leader of Team JPDE," Deku said. "It's nice to meet you, Jack," Arslan said. "Likewise, Arslan. I've heard a lot about you and Reese from Bolin," Jack said. "Wait, how do you?" Arslan asked. "Izuku brought Bolin to us. He's worried that what happened would divide the team," Jack said. "Maybe it should. I'm a terrible teammate. I can't even trust my partner not to get herself into trouble," Arslan said. "You trust her in a fight though, right?" Jack asked. I do, but," Arslan said. "Then you do trust her. You just need to learn how to do so out of the battlefield," Jack said. "But how do I do that?" Arslan asked. "That's something you'll just have to figure out. Trust me, I know what it's like. I had a grudge with one of my teammates because he's used the wrong variety of cinnamon," Jack said. "Wait, what?" Arslan asked. "It's quite the story. It all started when," Jack said. Meanwhile, Bolin had called Res and asked to meet her in the gardens. "So, what do you want, Bolin, and who's the short rabbit?" Reese asked. "Reese," Bolin said. "Sorry. Would you please introduce me to your friend?" Reese asked. "Man, he has you whipped," Evelyn said. "He does not. I am bound to know one, White Ears," Reese said. "Oh no, there's two of them now," Bolin said. Reese and Evelyn laughed. "The name's Evelyn, member of Team JPDE. I'm Reese, member of Team ABRN. "Wait, Team JPDE? That's the team," Reese said. "The team Izuku is on, yes. And I know what happened between you and Arslan," Evelyn said. "I don't want to talk about that," Reese said. "Reese, I know you're mad at her, but if things don't get better soon then we'll be expelled," Bolin said. "I'm not mad at her. I know I can be hard to handle," Reese said. "Then what are you?" Evelyn asked. "I'm disappointed," Reese said. "For a second there I thought you were gonna say human," Bolin said. "I have matured. I just wish Arslan could see that," Reese said. "From what I understand, this was a recent change, correct?" Evelyn said. "Yeah," Reese said. "Then you need to give her time to change as well. I know firsthand. Me and my team leader were at each other's throats all because of some cinnamon, and even after we sorted things out we still get on each other's nerves from time to time," Evelyn said. "Wait, what's this about cinnamon?" Reese asked. "I'll tell you, if you promise that you'll talk to Arslan again," Evelyn said. "I'll try," Reese said. After Evelyn had told Res about the mix-up with cinnamon, Reese returned to her team room to see Arslan. The two stood there in silence for what felt like hours. "Hey," Reese said. "Hey yourself," Arslan said. Outside of their room, Bolin, Deku, Jack and Evelyn were watching them. The four smiled at each other, before the three members of Team JPDE left, knowing that things would get better between them. Professor Peach had called Deku to say she was ready from him. Deku then made his way to her classroom. As Deku entered the classroom, he saw a lot of science equipment he'd never seen before. "Good evening, Mr. Midoriya. Glad you could make it. Now the experiment can really start," Peach said. "Professor, that equipment. Where did it even come from? I've never seen it used in class," Deku said. "Oh, from my personal storage. It's not something used for a school curriculum experiment," Peach said. Does the faculty know?" "Wait, how did you even get this here?" Deku asked. "I have my ways. Now, let me show you how to operate the containment field," Peach said, walking down to the equipment. "Containment field," Professor Deku yelled, then following after her. "So, I'm not going to show you all the ins and outs, just the important stuff. See the rectangle on the screen, here. If it goes past this point and turns yellow, tell me. I would usually go for red, but considering this is your first time, I wouldn't want to risk it. If it does though, push this big red button here, Peach said. Professor, seriously, what kind of experiment are we going to perform here? Deku asked. Nothing too nefarious, but a containment field is still standard safety procedure. Problem is, it needs someone on it at all times checking the levels of strain on the field. My semblance sadly doesn't allow me to split in two. That'd make things like these so much easier, Peach said. Is it dangerous? Deku asked. Oh, no worries. The controls are far enough for what I'm trying to do, even in the case of total containment failure, Peach said. And what about you? Deku asked. Don't you worry about me, I'll be okay. Trust me, Peach said. But Deku said. I know what I'm doing. I'm taking a risk, but it's calculated, and I won't ever be in real danger. At most I'll get some singed hair. I swear, Peach said. Fine. But can you at least explain to me what you're doing? Deku asked. Of course. So, I'm sure you remember that there are a finite number of base dust types, Peach asked. Yes. Ice, earth, fire and wind are the 4 base types of dust, Deku said. Bravo. Now, these 4 types can be combined between themselves to form new types. Then those new types can also be mixed with others to form extra new ones, and so on. Now, while that happens in nature all the time, the process is random. The type, size or potency of the crystals you find in nature is anyone's guess. There was a need to find a way to reproduce the process in a controlled environment. To standardize production of certain type of dust, experiment to try and find new ones. That's how the field of dust science was born, Peach said. I see. But how does that tie into what we were talking about last time? Deku asked. Dust science is a specialization for hunters, but it's only available in Atlas Academy. Similarly to how horology is only a specialization here in Vale. My point is that specializations are not just underfunded and very academy specific, but they are also seen as something hunters should go into only past their prime or if they get seriously injured. As a fallback, instead of a goal, exception made for combat-oriented specializations. An attitude that just keeps getting passed on generation to generation, that sees direct engagement and resistance the one and only strategy worth attention when it comes to the grim, Peach said. And leaves people who'd like to dedicate themselves to something different in the field strapped for choices and facilities, Deku said. Indeed. Now, this specific experiment will be about trying to combine 2 types of dust with atypical levels of purity. Eyes on the field counter, please, Peach said. Peach then entered the containment field, while Deku took up his position. It's going to be speed dust and fire dust. Speed dust is pretty much only used in projectile weapons, nowadays. They tried applying it to fabric, but like all attempts of dust textile enhancements, it gave more problems than benefits, Peach said. Okay. So why are you? Deku said. My theory is that adding speed dust to fire dust, the fire crystal will be able to obtain a faster deflagration before dissipating, aka it's going to cover a larger area with the same boom potency, Peach said. Interesting. And what application would this combination be used for? Deku asked. One I can think of is dust mines. The ones they use right now have insufficient area of effect and I'd say are a waste of material for their bang, Peach said. Dust mines. Are you sure it's safe to do so? Deku asked. Absolutely. As I said, this is atypical purity. A fire crystal of this quality is only going to be able to produce an explosion of maximum 5% of their actual potency, Peach said. Oh. Okay, that sounds good, Deku said. Yup. I mean, provided that the added velocity doesn't also affect the strength, Peach said. Wait, what if it? Deku said. All of a sudden there was an explosion. Oh. Oh my god. Professor Peach, Deku yelled. Well, that wasn't completely unexpected, still. What a difference, Peach said. Are you alright? That was a big explosion, Deku said. I'm fine, Mr. Midoriya, my aura cover held. The field, please, Peach said. Oh, sure, it's, 45%, Deku said. Good, then. Yeah, it should be enough, Peach said. Enough? Enough for what, Deku asked. Well, the result could have been because of a freak accident. Maybe some contamination in the crystals, so Peach said. So Deku asked. Take two, Peach said. Stop, Deku yelled. Professor Peach then continued with more tests, much to the displeasure of Deku's heart. Now I understand why you didn't ask Weiss for help with this, Deku said. Indeed. Miss Shni is adorable and very eager to learn, but too conservative for these kinds of things, Peach said. She's not the only one, if you need to do these kinds of things when no one is. Oh my god, Professor Goodwitch. The curfew. If she heard the explosions, Deku said. Oh, don't you worry about Glinda. I got an arrangement with her, Peach said. An arrangement? What kind of arrangement, Deku asked. Adult stuff. Now, I kept you long enough, Mr. Midoriya. Thank you oh so much for your help. The experiment was a success. Go to sleep satisfied in the knowledge that you've helped advance dust science, tonight. I'll contact you again when it's time for the next experiment, Peach said. Good night, Professor Peach, Deku sighed. However, instead of sleeping, Deku thought he was going to have nightmares about dust explosions, thanks to her. Wednesday. Day 115. David had come out of combat class with a huge smile on his face. What's with that big smile, partner, Jack asked. Oh, I know what it is. Most of his matches now end up in timeouts, so he's feeling strong, Evelyn said. Maybe a little, David said. Now we just have to get your aura to last longer and you might have a shot at actually winning one of your matches, Penny said. Hey, real confidence building skills there, Penny. But I get it, David said. Yeah, which makes me wonder, partner. Why haven't you? You know, Jack asked. Deku had noticed that David's face fell at Jack's question. Feels like cheating when I'm fighting one-on-one. I mean, during team actions is one thing, but duels. I can't always rely on having you around, David said. I see what you mean, but it's not really cheating if you use your semblance how it's supposed to be used, Deku said. Also, by following that logic, you shouldn't be using other things either, David Penny said. Maybe I should start making you pay copyright, Evelyn said. Alright, I'll try and use it in class next week, okay, David said. Glad to hear it, Jack said. Though, may I suggest not using it to refill your aura pool? That would just bring unwanted attention on you, Deku said. You're right. But how can I use it then? I mean, it's literally what it does, David said. You could use it when your opponent goes in for a hit, use it to heal some of the damage. That way it looks like the strike didn't do much damage to you, Deku said. Guess I know what I'm doing for the rest of the week. Now, let's go for lunch, David said. Hold on, before we go, I have a message. Miss Goodwitch said she wanted to have a talk with us and Professor Peach tomorrow after dust class, Jack said. What do you think is it about, Penny asked. Considering recent developments, it's either about the adorable one or Evelyn said. The matter she told us to leave to her, David said. Deku had the feeling he was being watched. Seal. Would you come out? Like, fully, Deku asked. No, this is fine. Please continue, Seal said. Okay, let me rephrase, please come out and talk to me. I'm getting very uncomfortable, here, Deku said. Very well, Seal said. Seal then came out from hiding. Good afternoon, Izuku, Seal said. And a good afternoon to you. What are you doing? Deku asked. Observing you, Seal said. Okay. Care to elaborate as to why? Deku asked. Not really, Seal said. Alright, let me rephrase that as well. Please explain why you're skulking around, following me everywhere in broad daylight, Deku said. That's incorrect. I would have stopped following you once you got on the bullhead to Vale City. Considering the average level of abnormal behavior exhibited by Beacon students, I figured my actions wouldn't raise that many eyebrows. As for the reason why, there are two things. First, I'm trying to find an exploitable weakness of yours, Seal said. This is about my semblance, isn't it? Deku asked. Indeed. I have a duty to devise a contingency plan if you ever go rogue, Midoriya, Seal said. Do you really think I'll be one to go rogue? Deku asked. No. But your goals may end up clashing with Atlas's in the future. Or you may succumb to mind control, Seal said. You don't need to worry about mind control. I was put under it, but I was able to break the control they had over me, Deku said. A blessing and a curse. This information does not help me defeat you. If you want to find out what the examination uncovered, you'll have to give something I can use against you, Seal said. Okay. Well, I've been told time and time again to stop being so reckless with the use of my semblance, Deku said. And that's a weakness, how? Seal asked. Well, I can body and only handle about 20% of my semblance with no issues. If I go beyond that limit, my semblance cause my body to start breaking. And if I go 100%, it completely breaks my body. It's the reason why I have a bunch of scars on my arms, and if I continue doing it, I can lose all motor functions in my parts, Deku said. How powerful is 100% and how can I get you to be reckless with your semblance? Seal asked. I usually become reckless with it when push comes to shove, and I need to save someone, Deku said. Not something that can easily be recreated, and it wouldn't go down well with the public, even if you're the biggest threat to Remnant, Seal said. Also, it may not work anymore. Now that I'm gaining access to the past users' auras and semblances, I'll be able to use 100% a few times without any problems, and the semblances will also help in keeping me from having to use 100%, Deku said. As well as time. You'll most likely be able to use 100% without any damage at all after your time at Beacon. So there's a time limit on how effective that is. I need something more permanent, Seal said. Sorry. That's all I can really think of, Deku said. Well. It's at least something, so I'll tell you what was found. As Mr. Xiaolong said, your auras have assimilated into your body, so there's no need to worry about any diverse effects on your body, and as confirmed by you, he felt 9 auras in your body. Even if some of them are still locked. And that's really it. Nothing else is amiss with you, Seal said. That's good to know. Now, what's the other reason you were stalking me? Deku asked. The second reason is, I'm trying to identify the reasons for Penny's changes when compared to my file on her, Seal said. Penny. Changes? Deku asked. Yes. According to the reports from her time in Atlas, Penny shouldn't be able to function so well among humans. Also, she shouldn't be prone to taking personal initiatives. The Penny I've met here is not only well integrated in the human community of Beacon, she has also managed to make connections and decisions that should have been impossible for her. As I went through the local reports about her activities and interactions, there are 2 events of note that could have affected Penny's development. Meeting Ruby Rose and then being placed on a team. I decided that further investigation was required, to understand how your team have affected her so far and how else you may affect her in the future, Seal said. I see. And why did you decide to stalk me first? Deku asked. Truth tell, I did try to observe Ruby Rose first, but Seal said. Oh my gods, you mean you're just like Penny? Ruby asked. Not exactly, Seal said. What's your weapon? She's got kick-ass laser swords. What do you have? Arm cannon. Robot pet. Chainsaws. Please tell me you have chainsaws, Ruby said. She proved more challenging to observe than I thought. So I figured you'd make an easier source of information, Seal said. Hey. You couldn't handle the rubes, I see. Wait, you mean that didn't interest you, Deku asked. Seal said. You're trying to understand how human interaction may have changed Penny. One of your targets affecting your ability to do so sounds like it'd be a perfect opportunity to gather data, no, Deku asked. That's not how the scientific method works. For accurate results, observers need to be as far removed from the object of analysis as possible, Seal said. Sure. Still, believe when I say just the fact I know you're there in the bushes looking on me like that is affecting the integrity of the experiment. So here's my proposal. Would you like to continue observing me for a prolonged period of time, Deku asked. That's interest me, yes, Seal said. Good. In that case, you're free to join me on my grocery rub, as long as you actually walk by my side. I promise I'll do my best to ignore you so you can do your thing without interacting with me, Deku said. Acceptable, Seal said. Deku and Seal then headed into Vale, however Seal didn't have money for the fare. I'm so sorry. I didn't think I'd be leaving Beacon, so I didn't bring my electronic wallet, Seal said. Hey. I guess you don't have a personal scroll. They can be installed as a chip on those, Deku said. No. All I have is my internal communicator. I should make a habit of carrying it with MW wherever I go. That was very embarrassing, Seal said. In your defense, that uniform doesn't really have any pockets. Not much carrying capacity, Deku said. Indeed. I was thinking of adding a standard issue belt so I could hang a pouch from. Stop it, Seal said. Stop what, Deku asked. I'm not here for small talk or getting to know each other better. I'm here for a scientific endeavor, Seal said. But I thought the whole point of this experiment was getting to know me, Deku asked. Well, yes, but that doesn't mean you get to know me. I'm the scientist, not a test subject. Let's just go do your thing, already, Seal said. Deku and Seal then continued into Vale. It's not something you can find in a store, Seal said. Oh, wow, you mean you made it yourself? That's so cool, a female Vale citizen said. No, it's part of a military uniform. It's not available to the public, Seal said. That's too bad. Wait, you mean you're from Atlas? Wow, your tan is fantastic for such a good country. How did you do it, the woman asked. My friend is done. I'm really sorry, but I should go, Seal said. Oh, okay. See you soon, the woman said. I thought that's never end, Seal said. Hey, yeah, Miss Mora can be a bit chatty, Deku said. Chatting is purring it lightly. Who gets so excited about a beret? Wait. You knew, Seal asked. Of course I knew. I've been coming to this marketplace regularly for weeks, Deku said. You set me up. You did that on purpose, Seal said. Indeed. So, what have we learned, Deku asked. Deku then walked off. Excuse me, Seal asked, following after him. I'll tell you what you learned, the same thing Penny did, Deku said. What are you talking about, Seal asked. Well, think about it. Why were Penny and her handlers here in Vale to begin with, Deku asked. To allow her to learn more about human interactions and behavior, Seal said. Yes. They thought they could do it in a controlled manner because Penny is an android, but, thing is, just because she has a machine body doesn't make her fully a machine. You're not one either. You may like to try and act like one, but you're not always 100% convincing, Deku said. Your point being, Seal asked. My point is that Penny became interested in interacting with other people on her own terms. That's why she snuck out. That's how she met Ruby. and then David. After that, General Ironwood gave up on trying to make Penny learn more about people without Penny herself changing in the process. So, if that was the case for her, what makes you think you can do it? Deku asked. I'm nothing like Penny. I have discipline, and focus, and Seal said. A whole lot of pride in the way you carry yourself and do things differently than Penny, no? Deku asked. Exactly, Seal said. You do realize that you wouldn't have it if you didn't interact with Penny, and Penny, in turn, hadn't interacted with us. What exactly are you afraid of, Seal? Deku asked. I'm leaving, Seal said. Seal then walked off, leaving Deku at the entrance to the market. Deku then thought about how she was going to get back to Beacon. Deku then headed to the Bullhead Landing, knowing Seal would storm off there without thinking. I'll need to see an ID, the Bullhead ticketer said. My ID? It was just a mistake. Surely that's enough, Seal said. That's the problem with you Atlas types, always thinking you know better because you wear a uniform. I'll decide if it's enough. An ID, please, the ticketer said. This is preposterous, Seal said. Your ID? Now. Or I'll be forced to call the cops, the ticketer said. Seal said. Deku thought it best to jump in before things got worse. Oh my god, honey. Here you are, Deku said. Deku. What are you? Seal asked. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to make you mad, I just... Oh. But who is this gentleman? Did something happen? Where's your pouch? Deku asked. My pouch? What is he talking? Seal thought, then catching on to what Deku was doing. I only noticed when this person stopped me that they stole it alongside my belt, Seal said. Oh, damn it, my present, Deku said. The hell? They stole your pouch? The ticketer asked. It had my wallet and ID inside. I was too embarrassed to say so. Also, I don't think you would have believed me, with the way I acted towards you. I'm sorry, Seal said. That doesn't matter right now. Are you alright? Are you in trouble? Why did this person stop you to begin with? Deku asked. I was so angry at you that I almost boarded the Bullhead without paying, you dingus, Seal said. You what? Deku asked. This your girlfriend, kid? The ticketer asked. Yes sir, I'm a student from Beacon and she's a transfer from Atlas for the Vital Festival, Deku said. Go figure. I guess you have your student pass on you? The ticketer asked. Yes. Of course, sir, Deku said. Alright. Show it to me and I'll let it go this once, the ticketer said. Of course. 1 second, Deku said. Deku then showed his ID. Alright. Move along. And pay more attention next time, alright. Be sure to have your electronic wallet locked and reinstated, the ticketer said. Of course. Thank you, sire. Seal, Deku said. Thank you for your understanding, Seal said. The ticketer then went back to his post. Phew. That was close, wasn't it, Seal? Deku asked. How much? How much longer are you going to hold on to that? Seal asked. Whilst Deku had been pretending to be Seal's girlfriend, he held her hand to help sell the faked. Oh. Sorry about that, but it's not been that long, has it? Deku asked. Who cares how long it has been? It's still embarrassing, Seal yelled. Sorry, I needed to fake it for the guy, Deku said. You think I don't realize that? The shame. The humiliation. I've never felt so low in my life, Seal said. I guess you were feeling pretty lost, huh? Deku said. Is this what being socially deficient means? Seal asked. Yeah, kinda. If all your interactions are through the lenses of being an Atlassian specialist, Deku said. Never again. Never again. I'm getting a pouch installed in my beret, if need be, Seal said. It's not just a matter of money, though. I think you also need to learn some Non-military manners. That way, next time you need to, Deku said. Izuku Seal said. Huh? Yeah, Deku asked. Thanks for your help, the experience has been truly eye-opening, but if you don't shut up and let go of my hand right now, I'm going to crush it behind the point of recovery, Seal said. Deku then quickly let go. Thank you, Seal said. The two then boarded the bullhead to Beacon. That was one of the worst experiences I've ever had. Curse my stupid idea, Seal said. Honestly, it wasn't that stupid, Seal. There's nothing wrong with wanting to know more about other people. But you're only ever going to be able to do it successfully if you do it normally. There's no files on any of us, nor can you observe from a distance since the real world is not a neutral environment, Deku said. Looks like I will have to hang out with people, then. But I refuse to do it with you guys. I still don't understand exactly what you did to Penny and how. I won't risk the same thing happening to me. If I have to mingle, I'll do it with normal people, Seal said. No offense taken. Then, what about Miss Mora? I'm sure you have a spare beret for her, Deku said. I believe I do, yes. Good night, Izuku, Seal said. And a good night to you, Deku said. Seal then left for the lab ship. Deku was walking back to his dorm room. As he walked, his mind wandered to the sensation when he grabbed Cinder's hand. The memories of what Cinder did to Amber, it made him sick to his stomach. But it was the best lead they had. You don't have to do it, Amber said. Amber, Deku said. Not for me. Please, don't force yourself, Amber said. What are you talking about, Deku asked. I can feel everything you and David feel, Izuku. You can't lie to me, Amber said. Well then. Amber. I got to do this, Deku said. No you don't, Amber said. It's the only way we have to do this safely, Deku said. You don't need to do anything else. We know it was her who attacked me, what else do we need to know, Amber asked. What exactly she did to you, for one. So we can try and reverse it, Deku said. Maybe. Maybe I don't want to reverse it, Amber said. Amber, Deku said. Izuku, I don't want you to force yourself after what happened to David. I don't want you to go through that, Amber said. Hey, don't cry. It's no big deal. I'll do anything to help a friend. I just need to get close to her, that's all, Deku said. Are you really saying, Amber asked. Amber. The only way to touch her long enough to find out what happened to you, is to get intimate with her. If you have another idea, I'm all ears, Deku said. Amber smiled. Amber. Kidnapping and restraining her is not an option, Deku said. Phooey. Alright, then. We're going with your plan. Although. How are you going to explain this to the others, Amber asked. One word at a time, Deku said. There are two ways they'd reach. 1, they'll, Amber said. Amber, Deku asked. She's nearby. And coming this way, Amber said, before disappearing. Izuku Midoriya. Just the man I wanted to see. Cinder 4. Just the woman I don't want to be seen with, Deku said. How hurtful. Is that any way to speak to your girlfriend, Cinder asked. First off, you're not my girlfriend. And second, I don't want to be seen with you, as I would prefer not to be covered in your blood, Deku said. You wish to kill me, Cinder asked. Nope. But Evelyn does, Deku said. Oh, a feisty rabbit, I see. It won't matter though, she'll be a pile of ashes before she could lay a finger on me, Cinder said. Then you wouldn't have a boyfriend, Deku said. Cinder then pushed Deku onto a sofa and straddled him. I don't think so. I can be very persuasive, Cinder said, grinding her butt on Deku's crotch. I'll show you a better time than that rabbit could ever show, Cinder said. I'd like to see you try, Deku said. A challenge. I accept then. Give me a call when you're ready to turn up the heat, Cinder said. Cinder then kissed Deku on the cheek, and then left. That was surprisingly easier than I thought, Amber said. Maybe not so, Deku said. What do you mean, Amber asked. I was so, distracted, I couldn't focus on what happened to you. Sorry, Deku said. It's alright. It's a natural reaction, Amber said. So, how am I gonna tell them that Cinder has now invited me to have sex with her, Deku asked. One word at a time, Amber said. Deku then made his way back to his room. End of chapter 38.